and welcome to the 6th episode of the Fashion Feed. My name is Elizabeth Stiles and I'm a fashion brand consultant working with independent brands bringing their ideas to life. My guest today is Lucy, who's the co-founder of Lucy and Yak with her partner Chris. Lucy and Yak is an ethical clothing and lifestyle business famous for their super comfy dungarees. Lucy and Chris actually met at a car garage in the sales department, which they've since found out has some surprisingly transferable skills into fashion. They took off travelling around the world in their van Yak, and we discussed their adventures turning the brand into what it is today. I came across Lucy and Yak after a client of mine mentioned how inspiring they were to her business, and I became intrigued. I reached out to them to ask if they needed any support with upcoming projects, and the rest is history. I work with Lucy and Chris twice a month, reviewing their sales, growing new areas of the business and forecasting trends. It's a really exciting time to be a part of their business, and I know you'll love listening to this episode as Lucy is so down to earth and really funny. In this episode, we cover the full backstory of how Lucy and Yak was born, how they work with their suppliers and manage those relationships, our thoughts on how we foresee the future of the fashion industry, and Lucy shares where the brand is going from here and the exciting plans in place. She also shares some incredibly honest advice for entrepreneurs, and I just can't wait for you to listen. So here it is. Hi Lucy.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Do you want to start by introducing yourself and explaining who you are, what you do? I always feel a bit like Cilla Black at this point. But go for it.
So I'm Lucy. I'm the co-founder of Lucy and Yak. My partner Chris is the other 50%. So we started Lucy and Yak just coming up to 2 years ago. Actually, it's Shopify, who we use for the website, came up and said, "You made your first sale today." That was like 2 days ago. So, we actually registered the brand like a couple of months after that.
Yeah.
So we started Lucy and Yak about 2 years ago, and we never really worked in fashion prior to that. Neither one of us had car sales. Well, actually, I always say that. Chris always says car sales, but my background was mostly a bartender, and I worked in sales for about 2 years. And I was sick of the bartending hours. I decided, let's go and get a job in sales, and then I ended up selling cars, and then I went on to selling wedding dresses, and then that was my last job. Yeah, selling wedding dresses.
And do you think car sales was a good?
Do you know what? It was an interesting thing because I really enjoyed it. Prior to that, I'd never been in such a male-dominated environment, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It developed me in a lot of ways, I think. Yeah. Made me a lot more thicker skinned, and
I feel like everyone's got that one job that really bolstered them up a bit.
Definitely. And it was just one of those jobs where I actually got, it was funny because I got enjoyment out of, a buzz out of selling something, but it was never about the commission or the money. It was just always, I just loved selling something, and on the last day of every month, the dealership was just amazing. It was so much fun because what would happen is, because you've got they'd always try and make you get the cars out before the last day of the month to go into that month's figures, and so you'd have 4 or 5 handovers to do that day. But then all of a sudden everybody wants to buy a car, and on days when there's nothing going on, you're trying to sell a car, and then on the last day of the month, everyone would be coming in "Can I buy a car?" And they were just handing you, it was so easy, so you'd end up making 5 or 6 sales in that day, and having to hand over, and then we'd all go to the pub at the end of the day, and it was just such a fun day. Every month was the same. Chris tries to turn the warehouse into that when I leave him on his own.
Is that where you met Chris? Yeah, in that job.
Yeah. So he was the business manager, which is the floor manager, and then he, with the same company, he moved to they gave him the sales manager's job, which is the next step up, and he moved to a smaller dealership in a really small town called Hexham in the northeast, and so he was the manager, so it was just him, and he was allowed to take some salespeople with him. Basically, he was allowed to take the salespeople that the other manager didn't like, which was me, our other friend. But there was 4 of us that were really good friends, and we all moved to the dealership together. So we had 6 months of just fun.
I can't imagine you two wearing suits or
Chris really suits a suit. He actually looks, but he won't wear one now. He looks really good in them.
On a backlash.
Yeah, well, Chris was a Jehovah's Witness as well. His childhood, so he was used to wearing suits. He wore a suit really well. But now he won't wear them.
Yeah, I've heard him joke before as well. That gave him a bit of a thick skin with doors slamming in his face his whole life, and then it's funny the things that life teaches you that how you can then incorporate it into
Definitely.
the things you want to do. So you left the car sales thing at the same time, or
So, well, we both kind of got sacked.
Right.
We both got sacked. So Chris got sacked first, and then the manager, who it was like the general manager, came in to kind of manage the place, and I really didn't get along with him, and so I kind of just stopped going in on days, and I didn't really want to go in.
Yeah.
So we both ended up losing our job. But then it was really funny. I went and got the job at the wedding dress shop. So I sold wedding dresses for a while. That was a really nice job, working for like a small family business. It was really nice to work in that environment. I think I probably took from that the environment that I wanted to create within Lucy and Yak as well, because it was really nice. And then we both went back to college actually for a year. We were going to go back to uni, I don't know, and I think we just ended up drinking a lot. Yeah. Didn't really know what we were doing. And then I suggested we went travelling, and then I managed to talk him into it, and that was that.
Where did you go?
So we went to New Zealand first. Well, actually, you haven't heard the full story. So we went to Australia first. Yeah. And they didn't let Chris into the country.
Oh no! Why?
So I have no idea, but we went, it's going to be fine. Why wouldn't we know Australia's tight? But we were like, with Brits, surely not.
Yeah.
Why would they be? But I had a working holiday visa, which is like 12 months, and he only had a tourist visa because of his age. He couldn't get the working holiday visa. So we went into the country together, and they were like, well, if you're going to work, he's going to work. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to work. It's just because it was a longer visa. But anyway, they were having none of it. So they put him in a detention centre.
Oh my God.
And I'm not kidding, there was actual criminals in it. Like people that were getting deported because they'd done something wrong. It was like quite a scary place. I went to visit him, and he was like, I need to just get out of here. But he had to wait because they have to pay for the flight back, but they'll only put you on a flight. The airline that brought you has to put you back on a flight, but only if there's an empty seat. They're not going to give you a seat that obviously they could sell, so if they can't sell it, then you get on. So I think he was in there for about nearly 2 days before he got sent back, and then so I was in Melbourne on my own for about 4 or 5 weeks, partying. I got a bit of a bar job, and I was enjoying that a little bit, but it wasn't why I'd gone travelling. And so we decided to meet in New Zealand. We were like, New Zealand will be fine, they'll let him in. So we met in New Zealand, and then we like travelled New Zealand. But it was really funny because it feels like one of those things that was supposed to happen, because I think if we'd have stayed in Australia, we'd have just ended up in a bar job, partying, doing what we were doing back in the UK. But New Zealand just wasn't like that at all. So we were looking for a party. We got a camper van, travelled down the country, and by the time we got to the bottom of the country in Queenstown, where there's actually parties happening, we'd got it out of our system, and we were like actually enjoying just sitting and chilling in like on campsites with other travellers, and so it really like slowed us down. And then that's when I think I got a job part way along the way in like an oyster bar or something. It was really ridiculous. And I did it for because we didn't have enough money to go travelling. That was the thing. We'd not taken enough money to travel. We knew we were going to have to do bits of work along the way. And I got a job in this oyster bar, and I lasted about a week because Chris couldn't get a job because he again didn't have a visa. I had a working visa. So he was like on the beach with like all these people that we'd met, and I'm like in this restaurant. Like, what am I doing? This isn't why I came travelling again. Yeah. So I was like, I'm just going to quit. And he was like, yeah, just quit. We'll figure it out. And that's when we ended up like making the tobacco pouches.
Right.
Like, something came along. So we met a German couple. So, and we were, the 4 of us were making the tobacco pouches and selling them. But they were trying to charge too much for them. They wanted they wanted 20 New Zealand dollars, which is about £10. Sometimes 25, 30, depending on the fabric and stuff like that. And we were like, $10, let's sell them for a £5. It might have took us, in the beginning, it took us about an hour and a half, 2 hours, both of us together to make one. So we were on like £1.25 an hour each or something, but we were sat on a beach. Yeah. And if you can make enough, and we said, you know what, all we need to do is make enough to eat that day. We've got the camper van, as long as we've got enough to put fuel in it and eat, then that's all that matters. And we were kind of living day to day, and what we were saying is if we sold 1, we got enough to eat. If we sold 4, we got enough to go out to a restaurant and eat, or we could have a drink or whatever. And it was kind of nice living just day to day.
Literally hand to mouth.
Literally, and it was so much fun. And it was such a talking point as well, like meeting people. Like every traveller smoked tobacco because New Zealand was quite expensive. And then when we left New Zealand, like people were still messaging us saying how they'd met somebody who'd got one of the pouches, so they knew instantly that they knew us too. And we were like, and they were messaging going, oh, I met such and such, and then like obviously you know them, and so they've got a talking point then. So they're like, a lot of people were meeting, because when you travel New Zealand, it's quite small.
Yeah.
The travelling community is big, but everyone goes to the same places, so you're bound to bump into the same people, and you keep bumping into them again and again.
So it's like that was the beginning of this
Yeah.
community that I remember you saying that people don't really describe Lucy and Yak as a brand, they describe it as a community, and that's probably why.
Yeah.
Because it started from that point of view.
Yeah, it was a similar, that's how that began, and it was just such a nice, I think that's what maybe gave us the drive for it as well, because like, you know, I think I got this idea of what a business owner is. There, you can't see me doing the
air quotes.
But yeah, it's one of those things where you've got this idea of what a business person is, and they wear a suit and they're really horrible, and and it was such a nice feeling to make something, sell it, and somebody actually wanting to buy it. That kind of, I think that's how we ended up down this path, definitely, because it was just such a nice feeling, like, and hearing from the stories from people, and which is what's happening now on Instagram. We still get those stories, like someone just she sent a message yesterday saying that she was out somewhere, and 5 people came up to her and said, where did you get the dungarees from? She said, I was shocked. She said, but not only that, I was shocked that I'd found out about your brand before they had.
You're in the know.
And she said, and her boyfriend was getting really annoyed because people kept coming over and asking where they were from. Yeah, so that's still happening. It's the same sort of thing. And then I've heard, customers will say that they're walking down the street and someone gives them a head nod because they're walking towards each other in the dungarees. So it's like a little community, like a secret.
It's like when you drive a VW Beetle, I think everyone waves at each other, don't they?
Yeah.
You've made your own little thing.
Yeah.
So what was next after the tobacco pouches?
So we went on to, we actually did a 10-day Vipassana meditation just before we left New Zealand.
What is that for anyone who doesn't know?
So it's a 10-day meditation retreat where for 9 days you're in complete silence. You can't read, you can't write, you've got nothing, just you in your head. And then on the last day you can talk, and it's just, you're meditating 11 hours a day, but it's so incredible that it's just... I think the first course we didn't take it all that seriously. We were travelling, we were like, we just want somewhere to stay, because it's free and it's on a donation basis. So at the end of the course, if you think it was worth it and you can afford it, you donate something, and then that pays. The idea is that pays for the next student rather than. But when most travellers, or you can volunteer. So we did that. We didn't have a lot of money, so we didn't give any money. But then we went on to volunteer later at loads of different centres. So but it was just. I think that was one of the massive turning points as well for us. That it just gave us a different outlook on life, and also that voice in your head that always tells you can't do it. Well, that starts to not go away, but it gets less and less the more we meditate. So it's one of those things where we try and keep doing it. I think we've been back, I think I've done 5 10-day courses since that.
I was going to say, still like a really big part of your business, isn't it, to
hugely.
do that? Yeah.
And it was really funny because just before we went back out to India, we actually volunteered at one for 5 months in the UK. So, and then we went to India, and then all this started just like that. I'm like, all right. I think meditation had something to do with it.
I think it might have done, yeah. And obviously it's such a stressful thing to run a business, and that's, you say, probably one of the things that helps you cope with the stress. Definitely. The ins and outs and the day to day.
Yeah, just having something that you can go to like, right, okay, I'm just gonna. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, it's not. We're not that enlightened that we manage to remember that meditation's there all the time. Some days we just, when you're enjoying the anger almost, you're kind of like, I'm not meditating.
Like buzzing off of it.
So you ignore it, but. Yeah, so we try and meditate every morning for an hour, and if we don't manage on the morning, we will on an evening. So Chris is stricter than I am, is better at it than I am.
He's got more discipline.
Yeah.
But then he told me that his voice is louder than your voice.
It's much louder.
Yeah, needs to chill out.
Yeah.
So then you did the meditation, and then was it the vintage clothes?
Yeah, well, we went on to Thailand. So we spent time in Southeast Asia. We taught English for a while in those countries, but I really didn't like it. Chris enjoyed it, but it wasn't for me. And then it was really funny because we were in China and we had a teaching job, and we kind of started to look around for like ideas of what, because I was getting sick of it, but we were hoping we'd have saved up enough money from the teaching job in China, because it's quite decent pay actually in China for teaching, and the cost of living is really low. So I hoped that we'd have enough money to go back to the UK for a month, travel around and then go off travelling again and not have to work again. That was the plan. But I hated it so much I just couldn't stick it out, and that's the story of my life. I've never been able to, if I don't like something I just quit. And we'd flown out to Hong Kong to renew our visa, and I just went, I can't go back, not going back. So we ended up flying on to Thailand. We got £400 left. We went to this market in Thailand, in Bangkok. We lived in an airport for 7 days, by the way.
Oh my!
We lived in Bangkok Airport for 7 days. So we landed in Bangkok Airport just to get out of China, because this woman who we were employed by she was scaring me as well, because she was threatening us and stuff. And so I was like, I just need to get out of the country. Get us out of this country. And so
Bangkok Airport's massive as well.
Yeah, it was so funny because we got to Bangkok Airport, looked at flights, and we only had enough for one that was in 7 days, and we were like, but if we stay 7 days, we're going to have to pay for somewhere to sleep. And then we're like, just stay in the airport, see if we can get away with it. So every morning we were checking our suitcases into the like storage, and then going out for the day, and then coming back on a night. No one noticed us, and we started noticing the people that were doing it.
Oh, really?
Chris was like, shall we go and talk to them? You know, like, there's this gang over there. I'm like, no, because if we start forming a gang, then they're going to just pretend we've not seen them.
Yeah.
And then, we started going out we got like 400 quid left in our bank, and I was like, right, let's just go and spend it on some bits from this market and see if we can sell them online when we get back. So like Bangkok's got this really huge, amazing market, and there's a lot of vintage stuff in it. It's like really amazing vintage. I think a lot of it's coming from China, and it's just incredible vintage stuff. And like I've got a pair of Birkenstocks that I've had for years that I bought second hand from that market, and they had Doc Martens, and it was so much stuff. And so we spent the last 400 quid on stuff from there. Went back to the UK with not a penny. Luckily we've got a nice families. We knew we could turn up and not be homeless. And so we stayed in the UK for a while, and we put those online. Didn't sell everything, sold a few bits, and then started buying more stuff with that from charity shops. Chris's sister told us about Depop. Depop had just started maybe it had been around for a year or two, but like only the coolest of the cool had heard of it. And she was like, yeah, you need to sell on Depop. So we started building up a following on Depop through the vintage stuff. And I think what happened there was we started to get an eye for what people like, how to present it in terms of like photography and stuff. I mean, we weren't...
How to describe it.
Yeah, so many different things. And I think, so from that, we were noticing some things that were selling way, like if we got one, like if we got it, we couldn't, it would sell instantly and for like, way more than it felt like it was worth.
Yeah.
And so we were like, we could do with like creating our own stuff, because then you've got, you can have 10 of it and only one photo, and it saves you having to do, because vintage is really hard work if you do it selling it online.
To upload one.
And when it sells, you're like, all that work I put in, I want it to stay on the page for at least a few minutes. So yeah, we that was in the back of our mind that we could maybe start our own, but not really. We'd not really discussed it that much. We'd kind of started talking about it when because we were living in the camper van and just travelling around. We had a lot of downtime just sitting in the camper van when it was raining.
Lots of thinking time.
And then we went to the Vipassana Centre in the UK to volunteer for 5 months. We were there, but we were still doing the vintage stuff. So you get 2 days off when you volunteer, so you got 5 days, you're not in silence when you volunteer either, so you can talk and you're allowed to do bits of work if you need to. So we had the 2 days off. We would go out to the charity shops just in and around the area and then photograph them, upload them. Because again, we didn't need a lot of money at that point because we were living for free in the Vipassana Centre. So we ended up saving up about $4,000, and when we were up to like $4,000, we were like, right, let's go travelling again. So we went to India, So then we got on a flight to India, and again we went to India just for travelling. It was like in the back of our mind, we were like, if there's somebody that we bump into and it works out like that. But we went separate ways for a bit because I wanted to go and do some yoga, Chris wanted to go up to Dharamsala, and then I was in Rishikesh for like 3 days or something, and I was walking, not even that, I think it was like the day after I got there, and walking down the street, and I bumped into a couple that I met in New Zealand. They were from the UK, but we never met up with them since New Zealand, and it had been like 2.5 years or something, and we'd not stayed in touch. And they were walking down the street, and just in India, I was like, what? And they were showing me some waistcoats that they'd had made, and like the quality was good, and I was like, this is amazing. And they were telling me how much they paid for it, and like that it was a really nice town where you can like know who made it, the tailors are all there. So I phoned Chris and we were like, yeah, let's go. So like went to Pushka, which is where we met Ishmael eventually.
Yeah.
So like Pushka's it's just got like one long market street it must go on for about a mile. And every little shop has like a guy at a sewing machine. So you think the guy at the sewing machine is making everything in the shop, but turns out he's not. And that's the one thing with me and Chris, we've never just took it on someone's word. You know, like we have met people who are travelling that are like, oh, you know, it's all ethical, it's all this, but then when you find out it's actually this guy is sending it to there's 2 massive factories on the outskirts of Pushka, like that employ about 500 people. I have no idea what they're like. I've never been to them, so I'm not saying that they're not ethical and that they're not doing it right, but
it's not quite as clear cut as
it's not as simple as it looks. It's not just like, you know, here's a guy on a sewing machine and making everything in the shop. It's not. And so we started working with a few guys on the market, and we had like different things made by them. So it wasn't like the dungarees were our main thing, and some trousers, the Talora trousers, which everyone knows quite well as well. And we got a few different tailors making them, and when we found out that they were going out to these bigger factories to get them done, we wanted to go and see, but no one would take us, and we were like, right, okay, so this is not as black and white as it seems. I think what it was with the shops, they're worried that you'll go directly to the factory if they introduce you to the factory. So it's not necessarily that there's anything dodgy going on.
It's just lose their content.
Yeah, exactly. So and we just kind of we'd made a few bits, but we were just, you know, it's just something still not feeling right, and we kind of almost gave up. And we were in the hotel. We'd been there about 2 weeks, and then just before we were leaving, 2 days before, the chef in the hotel was talking to us, and he was like, "Oh, well, what have you been doing here?" And we were telling him, and he's like, "My brother's a tailor. Why don't you come and meet him? Come and meet him. He's really nice. You'll like him." So he took us out to his village, and that's where we met Ishmael.
And that was the brother?
Yeah, that's his brother, his younger brother. It's Munir is called, Ishmael's younger brother. Who, it's a really funny thing, because you've got Ishmael, he's got a younger brother and an elder brother, and every time we go around their house, in the beginning we used to go around their house, and the young Munir would just be getting out of bed at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and everyone would start talking in Hindi, really, like, and I'm like, "What are you all doing?" They're like, "Yeah, he's so lazy." Youngest one always gets let off.
So how did it get started with Ishmael? So you went to go meet him?
Yeah. So actually, funnily enough, we let Ishmael first of all make some tobacco pouches for us, because they'd been selling in the past. We were like, why don't we get them, rather than us making them by hand and them taking 2 hours, let's get these guys to make them. And they made like 150 of them for us, and just absolutely messed them up. They were just a mess. Good. But we were very particular, because obviously we'd been making them ourselves. But then what was amazing is, a lot of the time on markets in India, as a foreigner, you will get, if something's damaged, or like if they give you something that's not right, it's tough. You know, you've lost your money. Not everyone, but like a lot of the time that's the case. And Ishmael was the first person we came across that was like, I'll fix them, and he took them all back and he fixed them, and they were perfect. And then we were like, right, okay, let's make some dungarees. So we worked on the first pair of dungarees with him. And
with dungarees, did you pick that because they kept selling out on the vintage?
Yeah, and we could feel it. Well, we never had that many pairs of dungarees when we were selling vintage, but it was just a feel. There was just a really strong feeling that the 90s was making a huge comeback, and we were like, dungarees were huge. Yeah. Like, but no one seemed to be doing them right. There was a lot of just like skinny dungarees on the market at that point. Like a lot of the high street just had skinny fit dungarees, and we were like, that wasn't a 90s thing. We need to do like a baggy version, but then the other thing was mum jeans were really coming in, and sort of that small waist, big hips look was really in, and so we're like, how can we make that in a dungaree? Because most of your baggy 90s dungarees were high waisted maybe, but they were quite straight. Yeah. So we wanted to kind of incorporate the two. So that's why the elasticated trousers, they really come in at your waist and then come out at your hips, because we were like, that's the look. And also, like, I've never had like much hips or bum. I'm just kind of straight up and down, and so I've always wanted that shit. So it was kind of something there in me as well that was like, and I live in the trousers.
Wearing them today.
Yeah, wearing them today.
So he did a good job with the dungarees, or did that take some time to get right?
The first sample was pretty good actually. It's really good, and what's amazing is because we're not from design backgrounds, we can't I can't even draw a sort of fashion design drawing, and I'm not even sure if Ishmael could work off it if I did, but it was just an idea in our head, and we explained it to him, and he got it and came back with every time we do that with a new thing, sometimes he nails it first time and there's just a few tweaks, and sometimes it just needs a bit more than a few tweaks, but usually by the second sample it's perfect.
Yeah. And how did it go when you uploaded them onto the website? Or Depop, it was still at this point.
Yeah, it was Depop. So we went from there back up to Rishikesh because I'd not finished with my yoga yet. I still wanted to do some yoga. So we went back up to Rishikesh and we were staying in an ashram. Yeah. It was so funny because we were staying in an ashram.
What is an ashram?
So it's like a yoga ashram. So you get some that are very traditional, and so you're supposed to be in there just doing yoga, really meditating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Chris, we were ironing clothes in our bedroom. I was still going to yoga classes because I had no interest in yoga.
Yeah.
But it was 45 degrees. It was the hottest time of the year. There's no air conditioning because it was really basic rooms, £2 a night and things.
And adding more heat with the iron.
Yeah, ridiculous. But it was funny because we were having to find these things as well. We had to buy an iron. We were like, where are we going to buy an iron from? We're just in a tourist area. So, we were ironing everything and we were photographing it on me. But then, if anyone's been to India, you'll know that if you're doing anything that's a bit unusual in public, you'll get a big crowd around you. So honestly, and I was having to model them, and I'm already not a fan of everyone watching me in any situation, but when I'm trying to model some clothes and because stick your bum out, I'm like, no, God. There's just a crowd of people around us, and then it's 45 degrees, and so, and Chris had to learn how to take photos as well, so we had a lot of fun looking back, but at the time it felt
hot.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. But it was so much fun because we photographed the first dungarees. There was 5 colours, 5 pairs of each. No, 6 colours, sorry, 5 pairs of each. And we put them on Depop and they sold out that night. We sat in a cafe in India on the Wi-Fi. It's all gone. And we were like, no way. So we phoned Ishmael and we were like, we need to make some more. We'll send you the money. And so we made about 100 pairs the next time. And we've just done that literally from the start. We've not borrowed any money or had any investment or anything like that. We've just kept putting every penny back on more stock.
Yeah. And so then you came back to England, to your mum's place, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well that's the other side of the story. So my mum had been posting out the vintage stuff for us. Yeah. Because when we went to India, we still had stuff up for sale. So we left it at mum and dad's house, and she was just posting it as it sold. So there was still a little bit of money coming in every now and then. And then I didn't tell her, and just this massive box of stuff landed on her doorstep, and she's like, what is this? I'm like, yeah, it's more stock. So my mum was posting them out to customers, and she still had a job at the time, and it started getting more and more, and she's like, Lucy, I can't deal with all these orders. She's handwriting all the notes and stuff. Oh, bless her, yeah. And she kept mixing them up and sending the wrong ones out. And she would do it on the kitchen table, and she once sent a coaster to somebody. We got it back as a return. Yeah. So my mum was doing that. So then we realised it was getting quite big. But we were like, right, okay, Ishmael knows what he's doing. We can just go back and he can just keep sending stuff. So we went back and started helping my mum. But we were working we've got the little box room at my mum's, and all it had got is one 3/4 bed and a wardrobe that's built into the wall, and all the stock was in there. You couldn't move. Everything was in our bedroom, and the dog liked to sleep on our bed. So we've got this tiny little room with all the clothes packed in it. And then
have you got any pictures from it still?
No, we're terrible at taking photos. Yeah. And then my dad's been dying. My mum and dad live in a bungalow, and so my dad's been absolutely dying to dig out the underneath of the house forever, because it's on the street's on such a slant that there's quite a lot of room underneath the house that's wasted. So my dad's been wanting to turn it into a man's den or something, and he's like, I can do it. I'll do it for the business. You can use it underneath as the thing. So he did it out. It took him about 2 months. By the time we moved in, it was too small, and we were like, oh, damn. So we were we dealt with it we worked in there for about a month or two. Then we employed a friend of mine who I've known from school. she came to work for us. So she was our first employee, which was quite scary actually. She got a job and she was like, I'm happy to quit my job. I'm like, oh God, dare I tell someone that? We didn't know where it was going to go. Because every day you wake up, thinking no one's going to buy anything today.
Yeah, is it all going to collapse?
Just stop now. But we had got the website at this point, and that was starting to build up. And so then from there we moved to our first rented unit, which was it was a council building, so it was just a rolling monthly contract, so it wasn't too scary committing to it. And we moved into that, and when we moved in again, it was like, this is not big enough, so we ended up having to take one on next door. Luckily we had another one next door to it, so we had 2 units there. Not for very long. We moved in December and we moved back out in August into the one that we're in now, which is 10,000 square foot, and oh God, I was so nervous about that. But then when we moved in, we've actually landed on a really good deal, and it's a private landlord, and he's on site. He's really helpful. He helps us get all the deliveries off the lorries and stuff, because they're a dismantling company, so he's got all the forklifts and things, so we haven't had to buy them or train anybody to do that.
Wow.
He lets his guys just help us with it whenever a delivery comes. I mean, it's probably
you wouldn't get that down south.
No, it's definitely a Yorkshire thing.
Yeah.
But the deliveries are getting more and more and more now, so I don't know, he's gonna draw the line at some point. My staff are always working for you, they're not doing any work for me.
Yeah.
And
then how how's it going now? So pretty amazing actually. It's just growing so quickly, and it's been one of those things where we've just been chasing our tail the whole time, it feels, and we're just starting to starting to feel a little bit more organised, and starting to feel like we're getting settled, and we kind of know who we need. Because I think what we've done is we've employed a lot of people, but because we've focused really heavily on the behind the scenes stuff, like the warehouse, just getting that functioning properly and efficiently has been a job in itself. And I've noticed a lot of small brands that start out just outsource that, and we were like, why did we not do that? But now we've done it, and we're glad we did, because it's part of the whole thing. And so a lot of our staff are based there, and then we've just opened the shop in Brighton, so we've got 5 or 6 staff in there, so that's amazing. And we're also we've just taken on an office in Brighton, because I want to start building more of the front team, we're eventually going to need buyers, designers, things like that. At the minute, me and Chris are doing all of that, and so with your help sometimes. But honestly, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I think we're going to get all these people in place and go, God, what were we doing? How did we cope without them? And I think we went to, we were talking to one guy, one business owner, and he was like, you've done it what way around? He's like, how have you not got those people in first? He's like, you're not trying to do all that yourself. And so, but then they're the higher paid ones, aren't they? So you're a bit more and also because it was all new to us, we're still learning, what do we need? Who do we need? What type of person do we need? Because I think you've always said to me, it's not when I ask you, what do I need for this? And you're like, well, I can't tell you, because every business is different. Just because this shop does it that way doesn't mean that yours is going to work. I think it's actually nice that you haven't come from a fashion background, because what you've done it backwards is working really well. Who's to say the way that Topshop's doing it is the right way? Because really, if you're looking at a bottom line between the two companies, there's probably not a huge amount in it. So I don't think there's any set ways of doing things, especially because you've got this far without following any rules. Why should you start now?
I know.
Because my other thing I was going to ask you is what kind of challenges have you faced? But I don't know if you have faced that many, because you've kind of just always done what you want.
Well, it's a funny thing, it's how you look at it as well, isn't it? You know what, we tried to do a recap at the end of last year, and at the time when things were going wrong, I was like, God, so many things have gone wrong this year. And then when I tried to do the recap, I could think of all the things that went right, and I was like, what went wrong? And the things I was bringing up, I was like, so we had 200 dungarees turn up, that the buttonholes were broken. At the time it felt like the end of the world, but looking back now, I'm like, it was nothing, we fixed it.
Exactly,
we got on with
but
it.
I think that's what's good about you two, is that you do just kind of get over it, and you're very...
Meditation is the big thing for that, it's meditation. Teachers you just get over it, move on.
But you're also very commercial. When I was in buying, they would send lab dips of 3 different colours, and I was thinking, these all just kind of look the same, but somebody else is studying it under a light box. And it's like, no one cares
No.
that much.
No, I can't see.
Yeah.
If I can't tell.
For a lab dip, for anyone that doesn't know, like, you say that you pick a certain Pantone number that you want your t-shirt to be, and they'll send 3 different options of different dye methods to get to that Pantone.
Yeah.
But they all look the same. I'm still convinced that they only ever dye one piece.
Yeah, but then when they dye the bulk production,
Yes.
one lot comes out looking totally different, and I'm like, how did you not manage that?
I know, yeah. But then I always got told by somebody is that if the customer's never seen the original, is it commercial? And it's always yes. It's still red at the end of the day. Like if it's not the right red, like if it's blue, that's wrong. But if it's still a different tone or a different shade, like
it doesn't
you'll just
matter.
keep moving forward all the time.
Yeah.
Like don't just bring everything to a halt because of something so tiny.
Well, that's the thing with us. The one thing I think that we've done is we haven't treated the business like a fashion brand or a clothes label or anything, because that's almost secondary. Like, honestly, if you saw the way I designed clothing and the way I signed them off, you would be like, but then everybody loves them and it's working out great.
Exactly.
And I think it's...
Go with what... You look at what does well and do more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think because that's almost like it's the area, definitely the area that we neglect the most, that needs a bit of work, and I think, but it still works, and we focus more on the community aspect and on the, like, you know, the social aspect of it with the who's making the clothes and things like that. Yeah. That's where our passion lies. It could be any product, to be honest, that we were making. It is exciting that it's ended up being clothing and it changes each season, and that also keeps us interested, because, you know, I've had I was thinking about like sizing, you know, we've been talking about like different sizes and stuff, adding more sizes, but a few people have said like, how can you bring out new designs but you've not got time to create new sizes? And I'm like, yeah, but being completely honest, I'm in this because I enjoy those new designs. If I don't have new designs coming all the time and getting excited, I'll get bored, customers will get bored, and there will be no brand. Like, you still have to keep creating new products to keep people excited and interested, and also to keep our attention on it.
Because you get bored.
I get bored.
You'll quit.
I get really bored.
You can't quit this.
No, I know. And it's so funny because, like, this is what's difficult. Planning so far ahead sometimes with some of the products, by the time it arrives, I'm like, I've seen that product like 6 times now with different samples back and forth. I'm like,
I know people always say that, don't they? Like, oh, you must have a new wardrobe, and you're like, I can't look at that anymore.
No, I barely wear any of it.
Maybe in a year or 2 I'll come back and wear it as vintage. But so when you're saying about the social aspect and like people, you want to get to know the people who are making it. Let's talk about the people in India as well. So it started with Ishmael, and who else is making the clothes in India? So
we work with a few different people now, but Ishmael's our main guy, and if you own a pair of our dungarees, they definitely came from Ishmael. Apart from the denim ones, because denim's a specialist. But so we've got Ishmael, and he's grown massively. So the thing with Ishmael as well is, our businesses have grown side by side together, and he's got more staff than we've got, and I'm like, how on earth is he doing that? And he's so chilled, like. But you know, we just come back from India yesterday, and I was like, it's so grounding to go out there. Like, we have to go there like quite regularly, because sometimes when you're caught up in it here, you forget why you started it in the first place. And so we've just been to India this time, and it's just so nice to be able to go out there now. And Ishmael's not got to work as hard now because he's got managers in the factory and stuff, so we can just spend time with him. Like, we went on a mini holiday with him and his wife and his son. His son had never been in an aeroplane. We took him on his aeroplane for the first time, and then we took him to arcades and all these really fun things. He got on the escalators and was like, what are these? You've never been in an escalator before. And I was like, oh God, I could have just saved myself so much money here.
Just go up and down.
He was having a great time.
Yeah.
He was loving it. So yeah, because they're from a really like small rural village, so he'd never been like in any of the bigger cities. His son, because he's only 7, his son. So that was so that's that. Ishmael is like, you know, he's just like, it's like family now, which is, and that's one of the reasons we said, because came out of just a love of traveling and meeting people. We're like, we want a job where we can just spend time with somebody that we like to spend time with, and just get to travel as well, and that's really what's ended up happening. But then, so moving on from Ishmael, we get like our jersey wear is made somewhere different, because that's more specialist. Like it's different factories got to make that.
Different machines.
Yeah, so we're working with a factory in Haryana, which is just out on the outskirts of Delhi. So they make all of our sort of recycled polyester stuff, the fleeces and
the jackets.
Yeah, and sweaters and things like that. But how we've ended up working with them is there's a buying house in Delhi that we work with, and this is owned by like a couple that kind of started their business really similar to us, but 25 years ago. So, and they're really focusing on sustainability. They're trying to encourage all of their bigger brands that they work with to become more sustainable as well.
So a buying house is like a middleman between you, a brand, and a factory.
Yeah. So if it's been helpful for us because we haven't got a buyer that we employ in the UK, so they kind of do that for us. At the minute they manage the production for us, so it's took a lot of work off us having that person in between. And also it's nice because they're working for you, so you don't have to worry too much when there's negotiating going on, or if you're not dealing. We still go out and visit the factories, and we spend a lot of time in the factories, and we know the owners, and we've met all of the workers, but you don't have to have those uncomfortable conversations, so you can just remain really good friends with them. You just phone them and go, I'm not happy with this, and then the buying house does that for you. So we work with them, and then we work with another one that makes more the like coats, like the recycled wool coat that we had. They're a really interesting company, those guys. They started like 35 years ago, two brothers, sustainably.
Wow.
And everything was sustainable. He was telling me, he was like, tags, this, everything. He's like, no one wanted it.
No.
It's like, because he was so excited when he met us, because he was like, no one's asked us about this for ages. Like, yes. And that's him who sent us the corn fabric, because he's actively looking for interesting fabrics, because he's quite excited that he's working with somebody now who wants.
Is as excited
as him. He's so excited.
After 20, 30 years.
He's like, I was doing all of this stuff ages ago and nobody wanted to buy it.
That's amazing though, the fact that he saw that. It was almost like looking into the future, that there was going to be something like the same. I was listening to a podcast the other day with Stella McCartney, and she said the same thing, like everyone thought I was crazy, but now I'm so far ahead because everyone else is trying to do the same thing that I've been doing for 10 years. And I think it will even be the same for like high street brands. Like if you go, I think H&M is the only name I can think off the top of my head that's doing anything.
Just like talking about it and trying.
Like M&S I think is doing organic cotton, but like really
organic cotton's been around a long time. It's not the only thing.
No.
Do you know, somebody said to me though that what was interesting was somebody in India just the other day said to me, have you noticed how the high street are starting to like make some noise of sustainability? And he was like, I think it's just a distraction, so they don't have to, everyone stops talking about the workers, because obviously the Bangladesh thing is so big, and he was explaining to us what Bangladesh is like, because this guy, he's actually been to Bangladesh to try and source a factory there, and he says like when like a bell rings at lunchtime and like 30,000 people just pile out of this building, he says, and it's like a stampede. And he was like, it's just, like he said, it's just not a very nice environment. But he was like, but when you look at the scale of it, how could they move that anywhere else? There's no other country that can handle that level of production. And so it's like, talk a little bit about this fabric here so that you don't notice what's going on over here. And like, I mean, I don't know, that was his theory, but
I think probably there's something in that. Maybe not all the brands, but I'd say a lot of them think, it's easier to talk about organic cotton than pay 30,000 people a proper wage.
Or manoeuvre that sort of production to somewhere else, because where could handle that volume. So, and then we've got another factory what's quite exciting that we've just started working with. So Kanal, this guy who we work with from Ahmedabad, which is a city in Gujarat, and so we've been getting our fabrics from him pretty much from the start, and so all of our organic fabric comes from him, and he is really into sustainability. He's quite a young lad, and he's like kind of took over the family business, but they were making mostly shirts, and he's just focused on the fabric and like doing it sustainably, so he goes to a lot of trade fairs and promotes sustainability, and he's through meeting us and buying off us, and then we've got him to know Ishmael a little bit, and they've met now, and they've they communicate quite a lot, him and Ishmael. And he was like, do you know what, it dawned on me that he says, I've wanted to make a difference, and I thought I'm making, I'm supplying sustainable fabrics. He was like, but it's not really, is it? I'm just buying something and selling it on. He was like, so you guys have really inspired me to, he said, I'm from India, surely I can make a difference to some people's lives in my area by doing a similar thing, like making sure that we set something up where workers are paid fairly and things like that. So he has...
Because in your brand, everyone's paid a living wage,
yeah. over and above most of them actually. It's somebody said you're paying your tailors far too much. They're ripping you off, and I was like, they're not ripping us off because that's what we've agreed.
Yeah.
But so yeah, moving on to him, what he's done is he's found this setup in the city where it's a guy called Raju. Basically, he runs this sewing setup, but he doesn't own the sewing machines. This other guy, who's quite a wealthy man, I think he owns a lot of buildings and stuff in Ahmedabad that he rents out. He owns all the sewing machines, but at the minute he just lets them use them for free because he's like, I don't need the money and just use them away. So he sounds like a really nice guy. And so Raju's managing the setup, and then he's getting workers in as and when there's work. There's not always work, so they only get paid if there's work. But all of his workers follow him around to factories. Wherever he works, they go with him. They love him so much. And so what Kunal's trying to do is he basically wants to take that setup and work with them and help them grow. So what we've agreed is to give them enough work to employ 20 people. So 20 people, we've got to now keep a steady flow of work coming to them. Like we do with this, we have to make sure there's always a steady flow of work. And so we've agreed to do the same thing for them with 20 tailors. And we went out there because these are the trousers that I've got on now that they've been making. They're really good at making trousers. That's so we're going to focus them on that. But he and Raju came to us just before we were leaving, and he was like, "So you're happy with the quality? Because this is the first lot." And we're like, "Yeah, really happy." And he said, "Can we employ more people?" And he just wants to employ more people. He's just got hundreds of people around the city just waiting for a job from him. So yeah, that's quite exciting because. I mean, again, we don't know the full ins and outs of it. We don't fully know. I think the tailors get paid just as and when there's work, and I think it's piecework. And we don't know how much that is yet. We've not delved into that just yet because it's such a new thing. We want to just get the work flowing in, get a regular steady flow of work.
You don't want it to collapse, so you want to make sure that you keep your promise that you made at the beginning. Yeah.
Exactly.
And keeping a steady flow of work, that's one sentence, but that is a whole job in itself.
Making sure the fabric's coming on time. And
there's so many more components to that. That might be out of your control. So I think we're doing it the right way.
Yeah. So I think with them, because the thing is, it's still a little bit of a funny situation where this guy owns the sewing machines and he owns the building that they're working in, but he doesn't take any of the money. But Kunal was like, yeah, but they're not earning any money at the minute. As soon as he sees all these orders coming in, is he going to want a cut? So what Kunal said is, the guy's not interested in sewing. Sewing is not his thing. He's a property developer. So Kunal was like, once we know it's working and we know we can manage it, then Kunal's going to go and buy machines, rent. He's already got a place that he's going to rent, and he's going to bring the team there, and then they'll be working with for Kunal more so. So we know he can manage it, and then we can start setting wages and things like that from there, which will be good.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just a nice. Again, it's something that's totally different and working in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why your brand has done really well. That's one thing, but then the other thing is that you have basically made ethical and sustainable fashion accessible.
Yeah.
Because for a long time it's been it's only for rich people who can afford it, and there was that whole thing about Stella McCartney Stan Smith trainers being more expensive than leather ones, even though the materials were cheaper. And it's where does that happen? And even sometimes you look at vegan meals are more expensive than meat meals.
Do you know my I went on I'll tell you one thing.
They're so much cheaper to make.
It really is, and it really does feel like you've got to have a lot of money to be sustainable, because when you're on an aeroplane, so
you have to pay more for a vegan meal.
And not just that, right? If you fly economy class, like BA, you've got economy class, and you've got premium economy, and you've got business class. And so we'll usually always fly economy, but if premium economy is sometimes a bit cheaper, we'll fly, it might be 100 quid extra, and it's a big comfy seat, and it's much nicer.
Journey.
But I know, it's 10.5 hours now, because it's got to fly, the planes can't fly over Pakistan because something went on with the governments there, and so it's flying round the bottom, and it takes 10.5 hours now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the first time I'm sat in there, I was like, proper knife and fork? They've got plastic ones in the back. So because you've paid for economy, you've got to use a plastic knife and fork and contribute to that. But yet they'll give you a proper knife and fork and a plate and stuff in.
That's really bad.
It is, and it's just just because you're paying less for a ticket, it's cheaper to have it because you keep reusing it. It doesn't make any sense. You just keep watching that one.
Look, can be your new project.
Yeah, so I was like, this is, it's so classist, that sort of, because you can pay a little bit more for a ticket, you can do better for the environment than not like using plastic.
So what other materials are you looking to use then going forward? Because I think that's probably where the most innovation is happening at the moment in fashion, isn't it?
So, because when we started, it wasn't like sustainability wasn't really, I'll be honest, wasn't really in our mind. It was just about...
It was the people.
Yeah, it was the people. It was just about working with somebody that we love working with, getting to spend time in India. We were aiming to earn £100 a week to live off. That was our goal. So we weren't like, sustainability, I didn't even think it would need to come into it because I didn't think it would become, the size it is.
Yeah.
But then as we started to notice the growth, we were like, right, we need to do something in terms of sustainability because if it gets bigger, we're going to be contributing a lot to that. So yeah, we've been working with organic cotton mostly, and we've started working with recycled poly, but that also has its issues, we know that. And then we've just actually started working with linen. Linen's a new thing for us that we've not been working with. But we've also been working with hemp. We've made some corduroy hemp dungarees that have been made in Yorkshire, so they're coming out soon. I keep saying that. It's like, they're almost ready. I'm now waiting on the tags. Everything's taking forever. So yeah, they're like 55% hemp, 45% organic cotton. And then the other thing is we've been looking at corn fabric for like waterproofs. So
and this is when I came down to Brighton. I was like, as in sweet corn.
Sweet corn.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the guys I was telling you about. We've got the factory. They're so like excited about all these different sustainable fabrics. So they've shown us some corn fabric, and they've also got a fabric called Sarona.
Okay.
Have you heard of that? It's like a new. So the thing with corn fabric is they're not sure how like durable it is.
Yeah.
But with Sarona's like 40% plant-based, and 60% like polyester synthetics, but it's waterproof. So like most waterproofs tend to be synthetic, don't they? So they've managed to develop one that's at least 40%. So it's 40% better than a regular one, like 100% poly. But yeah, it's a brand, so you can read like all about it on their website and stuff. It's quite cool, and it's really soft and really nice fabric.
It is very nice. I felt it.
Yeah, it's really nice. Way nicer than like 100% poly thing.
Yeah, and so moving on to another thing that's good about your brand is that you've got one kind of hero product in the dungarees, and you've always got that. I don't know, like central focus within, and everyone always goes, "Oh, Lucy and Yak, the dungaree brand."
Yeah, that's what we wanted.
Yeah,
it was so funny because when we set off, when we saw it, like I think then first 30 sales, Chris was like, "We're onto something here."
Yeah,
it's like, and then we brought another 100, and then the same thing happened, and we were like, Chris was like, "That's it." He's like, "There's no dungaree brand. There is no dungaree brand. We need to be that brand." And he's like, "So now we just need to work as hard as we can to be that brand as quick as we can." And I'm like, oh my god, and he's like 100 miles an hour with everything, but it happened.
Do you think for somebody else that's starting, it's important to have something like that? Yeah, definitely,
because I think if people need to know what you are. People like to label things. We just do, don't we? It helps us to like feel
memorize it. Or,
and to know. We need to know what that is to feel familiar to it. Like to trust it maybe, or and I think. Definitely having dungarees has been a thing, because now what we did in the beginning as well, which I think was quite genius, but looking back, Chris didn't think of it in that way, but sometimes he's got some really great ideas, and I'm like, whatever, it's not really that important, but it does work. And we started every post we did on Instagram, we called them Lucy and Yaks. We didn't call them dungarees, we said the Lucy and Yaks. And tag us in your Lucy and Yaks this, and just to get that name.
Like Google it.
And now everyone actually calls them Lucy and Yaks. We get this like, Yaks, they call them for short. So
it's getting shorter and shorter.
How are you Yaks? It's like, it became a thing, and I've noticed like so many brands now, other brands, hashtagging Lucy and Yak in their I keep removing them. I keep removing them from my tags. Go away.
That's amazing. So looking forward, would you say, what kind of projects are you working on? So you've learned so much, and you've changed so much, and you've gone sort of 100 miles an hour, like you said. What's next? We're looking at the buyback thing.
Yes. So we've had this idea kicking about for about 6 months, but we've just never got around to doing it. But we want to start a buyback where to kind of keep the circular economy going of the products. And I think so. What the plan is that we'll have a 3-tier grading system. We actually got this idea from Patagonia, which is a brand that we both absolutely love. And I think so. What they do is they buy back and then they'll sell it on as well. And they've got like a worn wear section on their website, and that's where we got the idea from. And we were like, we need to do that as well. But why don't we do it with everything? Yeah. And not just stuff that's resellable, even if it's just like ready for the bin. You know, there's not. It's you've worn it that many times that it can't last anymore. We can do something with that fabric, especially corduroy, because corduroy ages really well. I always think corduroy looks really nice when it's really faded and really worn. And even if we just patch one dungaree with another dungaree, like it'll. So the idea is that we'll have 3 grades, and you'll be able to send your dungarees back. We're going to start it just on the dungarees to trial it, just to see how it goes before we start with everything. And you can send your dungarees back, and we will exchange it for store credit. And there'll be different values. We haven't placed the values on yet, but so if it's nothing can be done with it, it's just we're just going to either recycle it or return it into something else. We've got seamstresses now in Yorkshire that we can work on. They're turning dungarees into bags and things. A few people have bought them in the shop.
An original.
Yeah. And so. Yeah, that'll be one tier, and then the next one will be, it's still wearable but needs repairing, so we'll repair that and we can sell it on our Depop, so you'll be able to buy the second-hand versions on Depop. Not with the aim to make any money off it, literally just to make sure it's sold on.
Yeah.
And then the next banding will be, if there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, it's just been worn a lot of times and it's just looking a bit older.
Yeah.
Then
or they just want to refresh.
Yeah. And we'll just be able to then sell it on to someone else, because I think it's just the idea is that. I think we've all got clothes that sit in our wardrobes that I can't be asked to put stuff on eBay. I've not got time, and so and you'd rather and I just leave it sat in my wardrobe because I'm like, well, I'm not throwing it in the bin. I don't know where to recycle it half the time.
Nobody throw their clothes in the bin.
Definitely don't throw your clothes in the bin. And sometimes you'll give it to charity eventually if a charity bag comes through your door, or if you live near one, you can drop it off. But I think sometimes it's just like. You don't want, you still like it, so you're like, I don't really want to give it away yet, but if you could swap it for the same thing but newer, you probably would, with like a little bit of money off that newer one. So part exchange.
Yeah. Going back to those car sales.
Part exchange.
Because that is a term that people might have heard and not really understood, is circular fashion, and that's basically what it is to keep it going round. And there's most fashion brands work on a linear fashion scheme whereby you buy it, you wear it, you sell it, and they don't ever want to hear from you ever again. But you're it goes back to the community thing really, because you're like, we're here, we're open, come and talk to us, come and give it back to us, and rather than being like, we've got your money now.
Yeah, go away. Not interested. Do you know what? It's probably inspired us a little bit as well, is the Facebook group that we've got. There's a Facebook fan group, and it's incredible. I think there's nearly 3,000 people in it now. It's just going up really quickly, the followers in it. And it was started by an amazing girl who, she's just started this group where people can swap their dungarees, if they've bought a pair and they're sick of the colour, and just exchange with someone else, or they can sell them on to each other or whatever. It's became a way of just to keep them going round, because if something that you don't like anymore, someone else might love, and so it's that idea. And I just have a dream. I would just want to get in 20 years and loads of Lucy and Yak stuff to be in vintage shops, because that's where we started. And I like vintage clothes shopping. That was I don't really shop that much anymore, or if I do, it's usually for photo shoots, and then I just wear that afterwards for styling. But when I did, and when I was travelling a lot, and when I had a lot more time, I just used to go around charity shops for myself, or vintage shops for most of my clothes were second hand. So I would love to be seeing our fleeces and that, because I was buying
circle.
I would love it.
And are you thinking of maybe doing that as a workshop as well in the store? Where people can come and repair them themselves. So rather than being I'll take it away from you, you can actually repair it yourself and then take it home again. Because I think the sewing skills are just not there anymore.
No,
I don't know, like it's that make do amend thing.
Yeah.
And like anyone that knows me is getting sick to death of me talking about this, but I'm like, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Like make do amend workshops are gonna be a thing.
Well, it's really funny because I agree. I thought no one could sew, but then when I moved to Brighton, like I think every girl that works for us in the shop can sew. I'm like,
oh, that's
good. How can you all sew? So yeah, we definitely need to put on some workshops.
Yeah. And are you thinking of maybe like opening any new stores around the country?
So we've been talking about. That's Chris's next on his list. He wants to open maybe 2 more.
Yeah.
In the next 12 months. I think Yorkshire. I'm going to open one in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Maybe Leeds or Sheffield. I can't decide. Sheffield is closer to the warehouse, closer to home.
Leeds is busier.
Leeds is bigger, so I can't decide which one yet. And then the other one we were thinking of is maybe Bristol. Because we know we've got
sort of art community there, isn't
definitely.
there? You really attract those like arty, creative types. So.
And I'd like to see what it does as well to the because Catherine told Catherine who we've been working with. She told us, because we were like, I thought because we opened the shop in Brighton that sales online from Brighton customers would drop because obviously they can go to the shop, but they've gone up. And I'm like, Catherine was like, because everyone, she actually said they're going to go up. You'll know.
It's like a billboard, basically.
Yeah, it's like, it's like free advertising. And do you know what? Chris actually said that the other day because we once invested in an underground advert. And we got it really cheap. When I say really cheap, it was still a lot. We've never been scared to gamble, if there's money there, we've just put it back on like the business every time. So we paid for an underground ad and it cost like, I think about $5,000.
As in the London Underground,
yeah, it cost about $5,000. Plus, then you've got to pay the model in agency because it's more money again.
And having their face.
You've paid for it once for the online stuff, but billboards are a totally different thing. They want a lot more money off you. So, what we were saying, Chris was like, a shop's not going to cost us $5,000 a month if you get a small one. It's like you might as well have a shop on a street in London rather than have a billboard advert, and that makes total sense because then it's like a billboard where people can go in and buy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I imagine there's going to be a lot of people listening who either know you or even if they don't know you, they'll be like really inspired by your story. What would be the one thing that you'd tell somebody who's looking to start a brand? Or maybe not one thing, anything.
Anything. So there's so many things. One word of advice that I've had given to me so many times is follow your gut.
Yes.
Follow your gut on everything. That's all anybody I've spoke to who's more experienced or has had their own business just says follow your gut. Just ignore everybody. Follow your gut.
Yeah.
Because only you know what's right. Because like you said, like we've created this brand in a totally different way to what other brands have started like, so I can't go to them for advice, and maybe they can tell you some advice, but still it comes down to what you feel inside.
So if somebody said to you open a shop in Birmingham or whatever, you'd just be like, it doesn't feel right. And it's that I've read a book before that said the feeling part of your brain and the language part of your brain aren't actually connected. So when something doesn't feel right, that's the only language that you have, and you can't say why, or you don't know because you don't know, but it's just the gut.
It just doesn't feel right. And there's been so many things that have happened, and I can't think of them off the top of my head now, but the last few years things have happened where we've gone down a path with something and we've spent a bit of money on it and we've gone, it's not right. And
but having that emotional detachment, I think, is another thing that you're quite good at, is just being, rather than sort of like flogging a dead horse, like I want this to work, or thinking I've spent X amount of money on it, it has to work now because I've spent that money. It's like, no, just cut the money and move on because it's just going to cost you more money. To get the money, it's gone. Like learning all the time and
if
watching.
it doesn't feel right, because something might feel right and then it might, after a few weeks of trying it stops feeling right. You can change your mind, and I think, and
that's fine.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Change your mind as many times as you want. That's the joy of running your own business. You can change your mind as many times as you want. Only it's your decision. But other things are, I suppose, don't listen to other people. Don't let them tell you can't. I think one thing me and Chris have looked back and gone, what was there? Because we always look back and try and sort of go, what did we do that was right? And one of the things that stands out to me is, because we were travelling a long time, we kind of lost that solid group of friends, and friends are amazing, everybody needs friends, but I sometimes think you're worried about their opinion, and if they go, dungarees, yeah. What are you going to do?
Who do you think you are to be a fashion brand?
Yeah, you're a fashion designer. Like those sort of negative things that your friends only say to you because they don't mean any harm by it, but people
they're
do say
They're also just trying to look out for you as well because they've got your best interest at heart. They're trying to protect you from... Yeah.
Definitely. They're worried, especially like if your mum, dad, they say things because they're so worried about you getting hurt. And I think we just didn't have any of that. For one, we didn't tell anybody, even my mum and dad, but we didn't have anybody that we were in touch with regularly to tell them, for them to go, that's a stupid idea. Yeah. So there was nobody to sanity check it with. So we just went for it. and it worked. So I think that's one of the bigger things, that it's difficult to... You've got enough in your own head telling you can't do it without other people telling you can't do it. I mean, as much as we think we're, good at ignoring people, I think we're not that good at ignoring it. It gets in there. I remember the first time I was woken to like advertising. I was like, I'm never going to be like
swayed by this.
But you do, even though I'm walking around now, I look at adverts to have a look at, like, now I'm looking at them from a different angle, and I'm looking like, could we do something like that, or does that work? What did I feel when I saw it? Does it, and but then I'm still find myself later buying one of their things, and I'm like, damn it.
Sometimes it's like 3 weeks later, so you don't think it's connected, but it's gone in.
It's crazy.
And if anybody wants to buy a pair of Lucy and Yaks, or speak to you, or find out more about the brand, you've got your YouTube channel.
Follow us on YouTube. We've not got many followers. It's our low subscribers.
But if people can learn about, and then, like, you're very honest on there, which I think is really cool. You've got your website.
Well, that's one of the main things. Can I just say before we finish that transparency is key. No matter what you're doing, and transparency doesn't just mean showing somebody what's happening in your supply chain, just telling people the truth with everything. If you try and avoid
I got there first. Don't try and catch me out.
It really is. It's like, and people appreciate it, even if it's not great. Like, sometimes it's not great, but we're only human, and people understand. I think we all understand. You can't do everything perfect.
But also, you've been honest, like, it's me and Chris doing all of this. So if your order goes out like a day late or something, please just try and give me a bit of grace.
And people understand.
And I think there are a lot of brands that I speak to, it's about us when it's one person doing it. It's about me. Like, just say that's fine. And then they're like, oh no, it doesn't look professional. And I'm like, well, when have you ever looked at someone else's brand and thought that's unprofessional because it's one person doing it? It's because it's that voice in your head that's saying you're not good enough. But you are.
Yes, you are. Definitely good enough.
And just crack on.
You're your own measure as well. I had this discussion the other day that success is whatever you think success is. So you're measuring your own success, and you're creating your own success. So if you're failing, then what are you doing? How are you do you know what I mean? Like, success could be that you just want to live on a beach and stay, and that's your life. Well, you get to make that decision of what you think the bar is for doing well as well. So don't put too much pressure on yourself at the same time. I think you can aim big if that's what you want to do, and like, you'll probably get there. But if what you're happy with is something else, you make that decision of what success is. So you have that opportunity, like, you then decide whether you achieve it or not. Nobody else.
That's so cool. I love that idea, and that's such like a nice idea to end on as well. Like, end on a high, and hopefully people really take something from that and have learned something.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening to the interview with Lucy. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Everything we discussed is in the show notes, so if you want to find out more about Lucy and Yak, the links are below. If you have an idea for an ethical or sustainable fashion brand and want to make it a reality, or perhaps you've started and want to talk to somebody about taking it to the next level, click the link below to contact me. I'd love to see you listening on Instagram, so just screenshot your phone and tag me on your stories at Elizabeth Stiles UK and Lucy at Lucy and Yak. The podcast will be taking a short mid-season break as I'm going on holiday, but I'll be back in a couple of weeks with more inspiring guests for you. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.